It was on this day that my life changed forever, and I'm going to tell you all about it. To set the scene, April 24th, 2020, so 5 years ago today, I was working 2 jobs. At the start of 2020, I was working at a finance job Monday to Friday downtown near McGill, and then on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights, I was at the hospital at the Jewish General in the psychiatry unit, Department of Mental Health and Addiction. On this given date, I went into the hospital. COVID had just started about 5-6 weeks prior, and as soon as I got to the shift, my colleague told me there was a letter that I should read in the nursing station. The letter was a mandate. It was from the government of Quebec. It was from the Department of Health, and it stated simply this: if you are a part-time hospital employee, which at the time I was, you have 2 options. You can go work in a COVID red zone, meaning somewhere where COVID is rampant, or you can go to the door and leave. Those were my 2 options. There was no in between. There was no gray. Anyhow, I was at a loss for words. I did not know what to think. I did not know what to expect. And really at this point, I was just confused. So I worked that shift, and then at 7 a.m. when I finished, I went home, crawled into bed, and as soon as my wife, Robin, my best friend, the love of my life, woke up, I told her about the letter. And I said, this is where we stand. This is where I stand, and I'm not sure what to think. You're my voice of reason. You are the smart one in this relationship. What should I do? Anyhow, she looked at me and said, well, the finance job, yeah, it's not working out too well, but whatever. And then the hospital, well, you've been there for over a year, and also you did get a diploma for it, and that says something. And then she looked me dead in the eyes and said, and you're also not the type of person who's going to sit idly by and play video games, just chill out all day, while others are suffering and dying from COVID. Or anything for that matter. She says, you did the schooling for this, you're a strong person, you're a warrior, you can do this. So, hey, listen to the boss. And she was right. So, at the end of that weekend, I wasn't working, and then on Monday morning, I called my boss at the finance job to tell her I would take an unpaid leave of absence, which she had already said I could a few weeks prior, and explained that I was going to go work in healthcare, work in COVID, risk myself to try and help, battle the disease, battle COVID, and and then I would be taking some time off from that company. That was at 9 a.m. By 3 p.m., they had canned me, saying that I terminated their contract, and they fired me, just like that. There was no sympathy, no care, just thanks for nothing. Bye. So that's when I found out that this company, which I shall leave unnamed, their true values was not for the employees' health, but it was for making them $1. And that's bull. But it is what it is. Anyways, that following week, I had a few days to just really gather my thoughts and just prepare for what was to come, as best you could be prepared. And then on the Thursday, May 1st, I had a little training at the hospital to find out what was to come, possibly get my location of my deployment, and go from there. A few days after that, I got the location for my deployment, and it was at a red zone, a elder residence called Henri Pradet. It's NNDG. It had a wonderful staff. It had 4 floors, and the total amount of residents was 125. So I started my deployment there on May 5th. I was there till July 17th. So it was 11 and a half weeks. Trust me, I know the numbers. And while I was there, I saw many people get sick. I saw many people some people get better, but mostly die. And it was some of the worst times of my life. Still to this day. And still to this day, even 5 years later, I still have PTSD. I have moments where I still have flashbacks from the red zone. I still see and hear the screams, the labor breathing. It doesn't go away. It won't ever go away, I don't think. I was there when people were taking their last breaths. I was holding their hand as they were talking to their loved ones. I would hold a tablet while, they had a little FaceTime with their families saying goodbye because they couldn't be there because it was COVID and no one was allowed except for us. Anyways, yeah, it was and still is the hardest job I've ever had to do in my life. And that says something because I've had a few jobs, if you know me, in my lifetime. But then, I finished my deployment July 17th, took a couple weeks, and then went back to the hospital, back to psychiatry, which was no easier because there it was psychiatry and COVID together. I worked as much as I could, did the best I could, and everything was going okay. It was still COVID rampant and still very unknown what was to come. Then, 10 months later, in June of 2021, my wife came to me and said great news that we were going to be expecting our first child, which is now our 3-year-old daughter, Peyton, the love of our lives. And I could not be happier. But there was one thing I had to do. I had to tell the hospital that I wanted to work days and evenings instead of night shifts. I wanted to be there for my family in case they needed me for anything and not be an hour and a half away by public transit. So I told them that I would like to work days or evenings. They said, we'll work on it. They didn't. They said they would, they didn't. And then, after a certain amount of time, it was just getting to the point where my wife is going to be due soon. And so then in January 2022, I walked into the hospital nursing station, talked to the head nurse, a wonderful woman named Eva, and told her, hey, listen, this is what's going on. Here is my letter of resignation. And she was caught off guard, which, yes, agreed, it's my fault. But it wasn't so off guard because I had told them previously for a while that I'd want to switch my shifts, and they did not accommodate. She told me I had to stay. They needed me. But when she asked me what could be the conditions of me staying, and I said days or evenings, and she said no. Then she asked if there was anything else you could do, and I said, well, give me another vacation because I need it. I'm not emotionally ready. She said we could do that. It was January. She said we could do that in May. And no, that wasn't enough. And needless to say, a few weeks later, I walked into the hospital on a Friday night, and Saturday morning when I left the hospital, I was no longer an employee there. I left on my own volition. And even years later, whenever people ask me why did I leave healthcare, why did I leave a job that paid so well? Well, yeah, it may pay so well in financial aspect, but emotionally it destroyed me. And as much as I take all those memories that I learned, all the people I've met, taken care of, and been there for, and all the colleagues I've worked alongside, at the end of the day, what was most important to me was work-life balance, something that is mostly and gravely overlooked in today's society. So, anyways, since I left in January 22, I have bounced around a few different jobs. Because if you know me, that's kind of how I roll. It's not the best quality of mine, but it is what it is. But since October 2023, I've landed at a job where, I'm still there. It's a year and a half. I'm getting respect from people I work with, my colleagues, my supervisors, as well as the people I interact with on a daily basis. So I think all in all, it's a win. I also get to be home again for my family, which is the integral most important thing that I was looking for. And, as much as I look back at the memories, the good, the bad, and the ugly of my time in working in healthcare, I look forward to the better and greater future, which is currently where we stand right now. So, anyways, I know this was a very long video, so if you tuned in for the entirety, thank you. If you didn't, you're not going to get faulted. But for those of you, my friends, my family, who have stood by me, by my side, through my good times, through my bad times, through my up and downs, and see me at my worst, and you're still here, I thank you. I sincerely do, from the bottom of my heart. So I will leave you at that. I will wish you all a wonderful day. Hope you guys know that I really appreciate each and every one of you. You're awesome, and I love you.